beautiful. Thank you both. Welcome again, everyone. If you missed it or we haven't met yet, my name is Josh. I'm the associate minister here, and welcome to all of you here, watching online, wherever you're at this morning. Happy to be with you here together. Already in the third week of Advent. My goodness. That happened fast. Seems like Thanksgiving was already kind of forever ago, but here we are. So my wife and I had the opportunity to go back to my home in Missouri over Thanksgiving, and I had realized that actually as I was preparing for this sermon, that was the first time I think I'd been back home for Thanksgiving since I moved out to California in 2011, which is kind of wild to think about. But being there, I've said and expressed this before that this time of year, really starting in September, I kind of make fun of California because I call it a lack of character, because all the weather is just the same. And I'm still so used to, like, I have this inner biological clock of, like, it should be, the leaves should be falling, it should be, cold. And when we were back, I mean, even Thanksgiving, it snowed twice, it was in 20-degree, weather. And it was just like, okay, yeah, this is how it's supposed to feel. And then I come back here, and the trees are, still have their leaves. Everything is green. It's such a difference. It's such a big difference. Same calendar, different rhythms. It's same seasons, but a completely different experience for not just for us, but just nature in general. It's just kind of mind-boggling when I think about it. And I might be getting a little existential here, but it made me think about trees more deeply. Just noticing those different patterns made me think more deeply about trees. In the winter, when you think about it, trees really don't look that different. They just don't have their leaves. And that's really the only thing that kind of changes. Just bark and branches. And the longer you can sit with that, the deeper it can get if you really let yourself go there. Trees are kind of instinctively intelligent. Winter comes, and it's just like they know it's time to shed the leaves, time to sit still, time to let go. The leaves fall, they let go, they don't fight the seasons, they don't act like it's still summer that we know of. They just let it go. They just know what time it is. And I wonder how many of us feel that same way this year. Or any year, but particularly this year. It's been a hard year. It's been a year of fractured hopes. It's been a year with distance, maybe, where there used to be closeness. Sadness, where there was once happiness. It's been a hard year. And if you're like me, many of you, I assume, are feeling like you're just kind of stripped bare. Like you have no leaves to shine. Exposed. Maybe just grateful that you made it through Thanksgiving and quietly hoping, determined that you're going to make it through Christmas and, Lord willing, the new year, 2026. It is into this moment, or this kind of moment, I should say, not in a moment of ease, not into a moment of abundance or comfort, that our text today speaks, that the prophet Isaiah speaks. As Chris read, Isaiah 35 was written for a people who knew what it meant to lose ground, to feel exposed and vulnerable. The people of Judah, southern kingdom of ancient Israel, they were living in a time of fear. Their powerful neighbor, the Assyrian Empire at that time, had already come for their northern neighbors in Israel there, and carried those people away into captivity. Families in the south were terrified that they would be next. Judah was relatively small, surrounded by empires that constantly wanted to control their land, their trade routes, their loyalty. Every day felt, I can imagine, uncertain. People wondered whether they would lose their homes, whether they would lose their city, even their lives. They wondered whether or not God was even still with them. And most of the poems in the book of Isaiah reflect that fear. If you can kind of look beneath some of that weird language that, may sound odd or we may misunderstand, if you can look beneath that, it reflects that fear very profoundly. And even the chapter right before and right after this chapter, Isaiah 34 and 36, it's full of all this devastation and destruction. And then, like right in the middle of that, suddenly Isaiah 35 appears. A poem about deserts that are suddenly blossoming, weak bodies, feeble knees that are strengthened, and people finding their way safely home again, whether that's literally or metaphorically speaking. It is hope spoken like, it almost seems like it's spoken too early, or it's like out of place with the rest of what's going on around it. It's a word that interrupts despair before anything is actually improved at all, or there's any reassurance. Isaiah 35 was written for a people that were scared. They were tired and unsure about their own future. It was a people that needed a reminder that even in the wilderness, wherever that may be, even in the wilderness, God can make life bloom again. And that is a world to which this beautiful passage was first spoken, and that is also a world, I would say to you, that we are receiving today in the midst of our own. Isaiah doesn't deny the wilderness, doesn't pretend like the land is green when it's dry. But what this chapter, it's so strange, so powerful even, how it's not just what it says, but where it appears. Suddenly, the wilderness rejoices. Suddenly, the desert blooms. Suddenly, joy breaks in. Maybe too early, but it breaks in there. No warning, no apology. No, once things improve, it might be this way. Just right in the middle of all that devastation and fear, there's a passage about joy. Some scholars even wonder if this poem even belongs somewhere else, and somewhere down the line, some scribe just kind of copy and pasted it into the middle of all this other ruckus. It doesn't seem to fit. It seems like it comes too soon before anyone's ready. But maybe that is exactly the point. Maybe that's exactly the point. Isaiah dares to speak a word out of place, a word of joy that seems completely out of place. And we're a people today, I think, that desperately need a word of joy out of place. The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad, it says. The desert shall rejoice and blossom. It may seem like just naive optimism, but it's not. If you think about it, it's actually resistance. Isaiah speaks joy against the odds, against the data, against what everybody assumes or sees happening. And we know the data too these days, yeah? We know all the data around us. We see it on the news every night. We feel it in our bones, in our own lives, as we shared in joys and concerns. We are sharing our own medical test results, our own layoffs, our own jobs, our own violence, our own grief and loss, our own uncertainty about what kind of world our kids are inheriting. We know that data, and we know it personally and intimately. And in this time of Advent, this time of waiting, we come to this every year, and we light this candle of joy, or try to light this candle of joy. We light this candle of joy, and we're reminded that Advent, the waiting, doesn't deny the data either. It's not a denial of the data. It's not this naive optimism. It's a simple refusal to let that data, to let that fear, to let all this grief and uncertainty have the last word in our life and in our communities and in our churches and in our country. Advent joy does not deny the data. Does anyone know, raise your hand or just spout it out even, shortest verse in the Bible? Anybody know that one? Jesus wept, yes. John 11:35, very good. Okay, test question number 2. What is the second shortest verse in the Bible? God is love. Close, and I like that one. 1 Thessalonians 5:16, rejoice always. Very simple. Jesus wept, and rejoice always. The Bible makes room for both of those, just like life. Joy, which is our Advent theme again this week, it's not denial. From creation to liberation to new creation, all throughout Scripture, joy is the first and last response always to God's work. And sometimes, especially in times like these, joy is the most subversive act that is actually available to us. It can be strong and it can be powerful. Isaiah, for instance, refuses to surrender geographical space. Advent calls us not to surrender moral space, spiritual space. And joy, in this sense, is not just a decoration or a whitewashing. It's not an icing on the cake. It's an occupation. Joy is our occupation. The terror, the grief, the fear that many of us feel about the world right now is real. But it's not the only thing that is true. And it doesn't get to have the last word if we don't let it. Joy comes before the terror, it enters through it, and it comes after it. It's the through line. Joy, despite suffering, is testimony that suffering does not get to decide what your life is for and what our shared life is for and moving toward. That's Isaiah's theology. And when he imagines the blind eyes that are opened and speechless singing, we need to hear that carefully. Not as erasing, disability or injury or fear and suffering, but as a reordering of the entire world. The promise is not just that bodies will be fixed magically. The promise is that the world will make room. Not just create space, but hold the space that we have already. Right under us. In God's future, those who are pushed to the margins will lead. Those we overlook will show us the way. And back to trees. They know this truth too. Winter trees know this truth. They don't rage against the season. They don't flee from the cold. They don't pretend that summer is still here. They stand, bare, yes, but rooted, visible. Sap still running beneath that bark, still soaking up the sunlight, even when it's sub-zero temperatures, freezing. Stillness, we can learn from trees, is not surrender. Rest doesn't have to be retreat. Like the trees, Isaiah's wounded people learning to sing again. And Advent, translating that to Advent this year, faith means holding space. Outwardly, inwardly, until life blossoms again. Until things warm back up. Until the leaves return. Isaiah imagines this highway of holiness, a way through the wilderness where the vulnerable can travel safely. No predators, no erasure, no abandonment. And Advent tells us that that highway narrows until it becomes a small child that we celebrate every year. Hope brought into the world. Love brought into the world. God doesn't wait for the world to heal itself. God enters the winter of our life, enters what is wounded in our lives. And so for that we rejoice, always. Not frivolously, not forgetfully, but fiercely. We guard those little pieces of God in our own hearts. We guard those little pieces of joy within ourselves, and we refuse to give up that space. We keep opening those highways again and again so that kids everywhere, people everywhere, can learn to live full, connected, thriving lives no matter where they were born, no matter what gender was assigned to them at birth, no matter who they love, or what they have had to do to simply survive. That kind of joy doesn't just belong to the future. That kind of joy belongs now. It doesn't belong only to Americans. That kind of joy belongs to all of us. That kind of joy does not belong only to the powerful and the comfortable. Quite opposite, actually. It comes to the most vulnerable, the most struggling among us. Joy belongs to that wilderness, to your wilderness. And my prayer today is that we take that joy, we root it within ourselves, and we keep walking that highway together. Let the people of God say.